Hey, everybody. Welcome into another edition of the ALABCA podcast. I'm your host, Caleb Brooks, and I'm joined by new Troy University head baseball coach, Coach Skylar Meade. And Coach, for you, you played at Louisville and played in college baseball and, now have been coaching in college baseball for over 10 years. And you've been to a lot of different places and you've been at, different levels of the Division I level too, which is kind of cool to me. And now you end up here as the head baseball coach at Troy. But I kind of want to take it back to, when you were playing and where you kind of grew up and where your love for baseball began. And, at what point did you kind of realize playing college baseball was going to be a possibility for you?
Yeah, well, thanks first and foremost for having me on. I think that for me, being from Louisville, Kentucky, hoops are kind of deep in your blood there. But at the same time, I had a passion for baseball very early and fortunately was good at it. So was able to, kind of have success and kind of knew early that I think I might have a chance to do this thing for a little while. And so fortunately I went to a really good high school that, we ended up having multiple big leaguers on the team, first round picks, other guys that played AAA. I mean, heck, there was a 3-year run where there was like 23 Division I players. So a lot of talent that you got to stack yourself up against, not just in terms of competition, but on a daily basis. And so I knew that would be an opportunity. I going into my senior year, I'd had a pretty bad injury to my back. And so there was a little concern about, I had a lot of places I wanted to go and a lot of people got scared by that injury. But fortunately, I ended up choosing the place that I knew was always the place that was like kind of dearest to me, if you will, at University of Louisville. And thankfully, I think in the end, it kind of worked out and it set me up and put me in a position to do what I really want to do, which was coach down the road.
At Louisville, when you were there, was all the new stuff built that the baseball program has, the turf field and all that?
Well, the stadium was always a dream that was talked about, but I actually played, and I think people don't appreciate this. I played in old Cardinals Stadium, which was a AAA park / football stadium, 32,000 seats for baseball, 38,000 for football, AstroTurf, not sports turf, AstroTurf. We had horse barns that went under when we practiced at 6 a.m. in the morning, and you get there at 5. You had to wait on cows and horses sometimes to get you into the Kentucky Fair and Expo parking lot. So it wasn't the Louisville that you know now. Yeah. I went in there and I actually got hurt. My last time pitching for about 2 years was March 26 of 2005. We actually opened in April of 2005, the new stadium. So that was also a bitter pill to swallow. A Louisville kid, a guy that, a lot of guys go through this, but I put myself in a position, you're a weekend starter at your school and you get hurt and you watch this new stadium open and you know that things are going to change a little bit for your program. And you're sitting there watching. And so it was a little bittersweet actually for me the rest of 2005 and then into 2006, just kind of sitting there on the sidelines, not being able to be a participant for really two full years, which it'll teach you a lot about life and if you really love this game, which fortunately I do.
Is that kind of where your desire to coach started developing, still wanting to be a part of the game, but not being able to from a playing standpoint when you were in school at Louisville?
I think it morphed at that time. I had the nickname in high school, Coach Meade, because I had my own opinions on things very often. Famously, a great coach I had in high school named Scott Geiser was one of our assistants. Him and a guy named Ted Brown, they used to always call me Coach Meade, probably a little facetiously, of course, but I knew I wanted to go into coaching. My dad coached me some as a kid, but kind of liked to stay, I don't know, out of the spotlight a little bit, but is just very brilliant in his perception of the game. And so I think there was probably a bit of that spilled into me and some of the people that surrounded him. But I think when I got hurt, I really knew that I had to reassess things because I knew that was going to take, when you tear your shoulder up like I did, that makes professional baseball a very difficult proposition down the road. And so I did have to reassess, I think. And that was probably the time where I at least got my psyche and my ducks in a row about, how I would do things when I start coaching.
So growing up in Louisville, I mean, you grew up a Louisville Cardinal fan? Was that was your team growing up? And so what was
Oh,
it like? What was it like to play for them and kind of live out that dream of being a Louisville Cardinal when you were able to play there?
I said something when I signed in high school way back in 2001, which is crazy. It's 20 years ago to think of. I remember my signing party at in high school. I can like actually vividly remember that, giving guys fake notes to get out of class to come to my signing party. It was I'm surprised I didn't get more trouble for that. But, you know, I do remember saying something, and I'm sure it was laughed at in the community at the time. But, I said the reason I chose Louisville was if I'm going to be a part of a program going to Omaha, there's only one place that I would want it to be. Now, at the time I said that, Louisville had never made an NCAA tournament, not even an NCAA tournament. Now, my senior year in high school, they did. But when we, made our run in 2007, literally one tournament in the history of the school, all the guys that I played with had not got an opportunity for professional baseball as juniors. Now we ended up having 7 of our seniors drafted that year. So, the course of the program changed in that 07 run that we made to Omaha. And quite frankly, we were, a break or two from maybe being the team there standing at the end. But regardless of that, it was one of the more incredible runs. And I think it changed that program, as well as obviously Coach McDonald, Lamonis, Roger Williams, and what they brought to the table there at my university.
You got to live out what would have been a huge dream for me, which is playing at Rosenblatt Stadium and getting to go to Rosenblatt and be a part of that. And I remember being a kid, I was playing the NCAA baseball video game, and I would just love it when you got to Rosenblatt and got to play there. And how cool was that? Especially you were right there at the end of Rosenblatt, getting to go and experience that and being one of the last groups to experience playing at Rosenblatt.
Well, Rosenblatt is a special place. I don't think guys in college baseball appreciate what Rosenblatt probably was and how it was just, tucked in there right in the community. I could give you a million incredible stories about, that experience out there that I remember, and some I probably don't even remember, because it was such a whirlwind that we went through. And quite honestly, individually, for someone who thought he might never throw a ball again to actually pitch out there in our program's first win, I closed the last 3 innings of the Mississippi State game, to be they choose an ambassador for every program when they drop in all the parachute guys from Offutt Air Force Base, drop in the 8 teams flag, and you carry it to your team, and to be chosen to be that guy to represent my university, and to have my mom and dad and grandpa and just different people to experience that with. And heck, the game I threw and the game we won was on Father's Day. What a unique thing that is for the people that were in, my life. So, it's just, the stories are endless. You sign autographs for 2 straight hours, thousands of people. It's a really cool thing. And it's become bigger and better than ever.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think there was a special something that you couldn't put a finger on with Rosenblatt that I wish our guys here, and heck, I wish guys around the country could have experienced, because it was like nothing else.
When you played, BSR era was in full swing, and the bats were as hot as they ever were, and we were right there at the end, getting close to BB core. Is the way that you teach pitching now any different with the BB core bats compared to how maybe you were taught back then with BSR? Me and my brother were watching a game from Rosenblatt this summer, and you could just hear the difference of the ball coming off the bat, and outfielders were basically playing 5 feet from the warning track, and it was a lot different. So is the way that you teach pitching now any different than how you were taught when you were playing with the bats being a lot hotter?
I think a lot of the concepts are the same. You got to still obviously come in your glove side. You got to attack the zone. You got to be able to wrinkle a breaking ball or put an off speed out of the zone when you want to. You got to be able to pitch backwards at times. I think a lot of that's very similar. I will tell you this. I think the game's never been in a better place. The bats are a little bit better. They're not as dead as they were when they came out in 2011, but they're obviously not as juiced as they were during the Gorilla Ball days with LSU and them in the 90s and early 2000s. The baseball scene change, I think, is found a sweet spot in terms of, I think it does produce a little more velocity in the game, which people love, but it's also allowed, when you barrel a baseball, it can be a home run. And so I think the game is in a great spot. You look how the numbers have leveled off in terms of pitching, offensive production in college baseball. I think we're in the best spot possible for high-level competitive baseball. And I think what people forget sometimes, when you see the game sometimes in Omaha, a lot of times they play these night games and the air gets a little bit dead out there. The day games play very normal often. And the games that precede it in supers, regionals, and conference tournaments, all of that stuff, the game has a lot of runs. The average runs per game has been going up for a while. So I think we're in the right spot. But how we teach it, I think the game is still very similar in terms of what you got to do to be successful.
Kind of tell people that don't know a lot about you, just about now your coaching career, when you got into it, where you've been, and how has the different places and the different coaches you've been under now going to shape how you are going to run this program here at Troy?
No, that's a good question. I mean, I was very fortunate. I got hired at Eastern Illinois at 22, about 10, 11 days out of playing in Omaha. Jimmy Schmitz took a chance on me, 22 years old. And, I was a second assistant. I was initially I was getting paid under the graduate assistant program. So I was getting about $8,000 and going and getting my master's at the same time. But I was able to recruit. I had full control of our pitching staff in every facet, who came in, calling pitches, the protocols, plans, all the things that we did. So I was given tremendous responsibility at age 22. And so Coach Schmitz, I've given more credit to probably than anybody, because he did not have to take that chance. It took, for lack of a better description, it took some balls to do that. I don't think a lot of people would, but he did. I liken it a lot to, a lot of people probably don't talk about this in his career, but Eric Bakich took a chance on a guy when he was at Maryland, when his career was really kind of getting going. He hired a guy I played with in college named Dan Burton, and really put him on the road for a couple of years. And Dan found a lot of great players. I think turned the course at Maryland, also set up the players that Coach Sheff and Jimmy Bellinger and them had for those years when they got to the supers. And I think Bakich took a chance. I think Coach Schmitz took a chance, and I think it worked out for all parties. But I was there for 5 years at Eastern Illinois. Following that, I went to Middle Tennessee State for 2, worked for Jim McGuire, who had been a longtime assistant, one of the best people in the world. Worked for him for 2 years. He'd become the head coach there in 2012, in the summer of 12. And we were there for a little less than 2. And then we went up to Michigan State, which at the time I wasn't necessarily, all in on, but my wife did a great job of saying, hey, you need to give that a real look. The Big Ten's getting big, exposure, etc. As soon as we went and flew up to East Lansing, we were like, uh-oh, this place is unbelievable. And we really loved our time up there. Yeah, I know it's cold as can be, but the baseball was great. The Big Ten was blowing up. Coach Boss is an awesome guy. One that him and Coach Sykes I stay in close contact with now. So spent a little over 3 years there. And then, I think the move that at least probably helped from maybe a national perspective for my career was in November of 2017, when Jerry Myers, longtime pitching coach, great pitching coach, one of the best of all time at University of South Carolina, had gotten sick. And Coach Kingston, was new there in South Carolina, and I'd had a relationship with him and a lot of other people connected to him, Coach Curran and stuff like that. And they needed a pitching guy. They talked to a lot of people, and I know I may have not been the first choice, but fortunately I ended up being the choice because of a lot of factors. And we went down there, and I think we had some good success. I know sometimes people there, it's national championship or bust. So did we fail in that regard? Well, I guess so. But, we were 1 game from Omaha in 2018. We had a really good team in the COVID year. Last year we hosted a regional. We're a couple plays from being in the place that we wanted to be. We didn't, but, we did some special things in that program. I've had the 2 highest amount of players drafted ever in the program history. And this is University of South Carolina. So, had a Team USA kid last year, Will Sanders, another freshman All-American, Jack Mahoney, 6 arms drafted, multiple position players. I'm very proud of what we did there. I had a great experience. They love their baseball there. But they also toughen you up and prepare you, I think, to be a head coach, because they don't cut any slack on anyone, especially the pitching guy. They're all over you. You can go 10 games of shutties, and you give up 1 game where you give up 7 and you lose, and they want to rip your head off. So I think it makes you have thick skin and prepares you, but I wouldn't change a second of our time there. My wife and our family, we loved it there. We're going to have a lot of lifelong friends from our time there, but fortunately it put me in a position to get this job this summer. And once this process started going, it was an absolute slam dunk. when given the opportunity to be the head coach here.
It had to be a lot of fun, I mean, like you said, I mean, there's some pressure and you're going to get some scrutiny and stuff, but it had to be fun to be at a place like South Carolina where baseball is important to those people. I mean, it's important to the administration there. It's important to the fans. And, even though they're in the SEC, it's not like that at every college in the SEC. So it had to be cool to be somewhere where, I mean, baseball is maybe the king at South Carolina.
Well, there most certainly. And listen, no matter what you say, and if you can't, first off, you can't handle what they say on social media from time to time, then don't be on social media. You got to either be a big boy or not. But you want that. You want people to care if you fail or succeed. That is just the reality. I know everybody, you think of basketball and football, but college baseball has become massive. And so when people have passion, and there's a lot of programs in this country, they have passion for it. And thankfully, Troy is one of them. You itch to have that. You want people to care. You want people to be upset if you lose. Like, it's way better than being irrelevant. So I love that part. I really do think, even when you don't realize it at the time, it helps you grow so much to be able to handle that. I'll give you an example. I would take my kids to school whenever I'm home in South Carolina. For about 6 straight months, on radio stations in town for 3 hours, they talk about baseball. Think about that. Like, literally, I would listen to Tim Hill and Bill Gunter on 107.5 The Game. If I was in a car for 3 hours, I wasn't in a car for 3 hours sometimes, but you could hear them, if you wanted to, speak about South Carolina baseball. That's just uncommon. That doesn't happen to me. That happens maybe at LSU, South Carolina, Arkansas. It isn't everywhere. So know that you're blessed to be in that position where they actually are passionate about it. And if once in a while somebody has a negative, be a big boy and handle it,
So how did this opportunity at Troy kind of come about for you? Was Troy kind of on your radar already? Did you know much about the Troy University baseball program, or how did this chance to be at Troy come about? And did you ever imagine that you would be, living in Alabama coaching baseball at some point in your career?
Well, I did know about Troy. I mean, when I was in the Sun Belt in 2013, my first year middle, we came down here. Troy was really good that year, 42 wins, won the league, had a bunch of dudes, the Danny Collinses of the world, Logan Pierce. I mean, they had players, they had dudes, arms on the weekend. And I remember going, holy heck, they are like, I didn't know anything about this place. And I'm seeing the stadium, the turf, the wall, the outfield, the terrace. I'm like, what in the world is going on down here? I mean, I didn't know a lot about Troy. What I knew from Troy was Dwayne Watt. I'm thinking of football, O.C. Uminora. I remember those guys. And I'm like, man, this is really impressive what they got going here. And they whipped us pretty good on a weekend. And so I always thought of that. But I mean, the way the process really went down, it was just very ironic. My top assistant, Ben Wolgamon, had sent me a message on a Monday night in late June, said, hey, did you see, Troy has come open? That's an amazing gig, and he and I had, been like this forever. And I was like, yeah, I don't know anybody at Troy though, so whatever. The next day I'm actually on the phone with Coach Wolgamon. I'm driving back from North Carolina recruiting late afternoon. I got a call from a number I didn't know. So I took the call thinking maybe it's a recruit or a scout or agent, I don't know, somebody. And it happened to be Brent Jones, the athletic director. And we had a short conversation. He was just curious if I was interested, and kind of grilled me a little bit for about 7-8 minutes. And I was like, well, that was interesting. Next day, we spoke again for about 35 minutes. And then from then on, it was full steam ahead. And in every conversation we had, I could feel his passion for the game. He was a baseball player. He's from the Georgia or Atlanta area. So loves the game. And as things got really serious and I dug in and my wife dug in, and we just started really like seeing what we felt like we could accomplish at Troy, it was one that you really, really wanted to get. And the moment it did actually, come to fruition in mid-July, I couldn't have been more excited.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot worse places that you could start your head coaching career than being right there at Troy, and especially with the facilities they have, and like we were talking about beforehand, now plans to build even better facilities down there. And did that kind of help in the deal a little bit? Knowing that plan was out there and knowing that they're wanting to invest into this baseball program down there at Troy.
Oh, it most certainly helped. I mean, look, on the surface, it's already an incredible job. But with, this $10 million project and their passion for it from the top, from the chancellor here down, from Dr. Hawkins, from Mrs. Hawkins to Brent Jones, Kyle George, Sandy Atkins, all of our, people that, are the powers that be, they want baseball to potentially be a flagship. And I think they were very inspired by Coastal Carolina 5 years ago. Coastal Carolina now being a Sun Belt member, a team that we play year in, year out. They saw what they were able to do. And obviously what Coach Gilmore and them did was incredible. And Troy wants to be a place that can do that. And I felt that from all of them and speaking to them. And I'm not saying that will or will not happen, but those are the goals that we aspire to achieve. And so that's why we're going to work the way we work, recruit the way we recruit. We're going to continue to develop as we've all done in our careers. And so fortunately they support us in a way that at least makes those achievable goals.
It's got to be cool too. I mean, you leave the SEC, which is obviously the best conference in the whole entire country of baseball, but you're coming to the Sun Belt, which I would say from a group of five standpoint, maybe the best conference in the group of five, with the Sun Belt and all the teams that you have in there and the competition. You've seen South Alabama, obviously a big rival that's been in the top 25 and has been right there close to hosting regionals, and shows that that's a possibility. And so did that part too, knowing the level of competition the Sun Belt has and how many good teams there are in the conference, did that kind of help in making the decision also?
Oh, absolutely. I know some coaches. Coach Calvi, who former South Carolina pitching coach, obviously has done an amazing job down there. Louisiana Lafayette has a ton of history. We spoke of Coastal Carolina. I know Coach Federico at Monroe. He's going to do tremendous things. Coach Trout at Texas State. UT Arlington has a good setup. I mean, you just go around the league. Georgia Southern has always been historically good. App State had tons of talent last year. You just kind of start going through the league. And I mean, you're like, whoa, like some of these schools need to take it easy. We don't need them to be too good, but it's an impressive league. It's a warm weather league. We are in an incredible setup that we are basically right down Broadway of going east and going west within this league. So our location is incredible in terms of our ability to get, to and from different spots. And that also applies to recruiting too. I mean, it puts you in such a great hotbed. And I know that California is good. I know Texas is good, but give me the Southeast. There's absolute studs everywhere. You can be stumbling in the good players if you're out there enough. And so it certainly helped, this league. And, with some of this realignment, there's some things that are on the docket that could even bring more impressive teams around here. So we'll only know as time goes on. But the Sun Belt, like you said, is in such a good spot that we could be a landing place for some teams that get lost in the shuffle of this realignment.
Tell me about your group. What has it been like since getting there, taking over, and having this team and getting fall started, and how's everything going with that?
Well, the biggest thing when you start up, and first and foremost, the advice, especially the people I lean on the most, Coach Lamonis, Coach McDonald, Coach Kingston's been amazing in this process, helping me. The biggest thing they first told me, and I know this, and I know that this will be an easy one for me, but they said, just do not change. Be the same. Be energetic, be sarcastic, but also just be real with your guys. And myself and our whole group are going to continue to do that. But it's all about laying the foundation for what you believe and what the standards are. And I think that was probably, our players have given tremendous effort. They've given 100% effort to that. Is the execution 100%? No. I mean, there's times where we screw things up that we probably think we shouldn't, but I also understand exactly why it happens. But the buy-in has been there. We have good players. The cupboard was far from bare. I mean, the previous coaching staff here did a very good job. Coach Smart's an incredibly good guy, great baseball guy. Played here, did tremendous things. His staff did really well. Coach Hancock had produced some really good arms here. Coach Gerke had done a great job. So the cupboard was not bare, and we're very excited about that. Are there things that we got to improve? Heck yeah. I mean, there's things that we want to take to another level, but that's also because we may believe certain things like a little bit differently, and that's okay. That's how it is around the country. But we're excited about what the foundation is. But what our system is going to be about is playing the game with excitement, energy. Our core beliefs are attitude, toughness, discipline. We promote that every single day in what we do. We are teaching them, if they don't already know, what really being competitive is, what that means. We talk a lot about the mano-a-mano battle. That's the most important thing in honestly, every single pitch between pitcher and hitter, and what that really is about. But we're not going to allow things to slide. And so we've had to be hypersensitive to little things, even just, third out of an inning, the right fielder throws the ball in and the the infielder is going to catch it and set the ball on the mound. Don't drop the ball. That's a lack of focus. We're out there for, right now, 2.5 hours. When you play real games, you got pregame meal, you got stretching, you got extra hitting in the cages, you got batting practice, you got a break, you got maybe some extra throwing, you run before the game. Then you play for 3+ hours sometimes. If you can't stay focused on our practices, then how are you going to stay focused and be great in the 7th, 8th, 9th inning winning time in real baseball games, whether you're a pitcher or position player? And so we're going to hold them to that standard. We will not let that slide. But I think as you see the turn of 2022, and we're not just 2 months into this process, I think that part of the game, our guys will have on point. And that's what I'm really excited to see develop more and more as we go on.
Are you an analytics guy? Do you get into all that? Or, I mean, what's kind of your way of kind of judging your team and going throughout the season, determining if you want to keep, this lineup, or if you need to change it up, or how do you kind of go about doing all that during the year?
Obviously, some of that's going to morph, because although as an assistant, you like to always tell the head coach, hey, bat Johnny in the leadoff, or bat so-and-so third. Like, now, obviously, that will fall on my plate a little bit more, with obviously tons of input from our assistants who do an outstanding job here. But, we use analytics. We have TrackMan, we have Rapsodo, we have our multi-camera system. I have 2 tremendous guys with our analytics team here. All that being said, I still don't think guys need to have that as their first focus. I lose my mind when the first thing guys want to do is, I want to see my Rapsodo. I want to see. Like, first off, you better be able to throw the ball over the white thing 17 inches, and you better be able to compete. If you're soft and you don't know where the strike zone is, you ain't going to be any good. It doesn't matter what your analytics say. I used to tell Coach Kingston this all the time. We'd talk about a guy with good analytics, good spin, good velo, blah, blah, and he said, why does he get hit? I don't get it. I say, well, because TrackMan doesn't know when it's a 2-0 count. If it's 2-0 count and the hitter knows 95, right down Broadway's coming, they're going to light you up. If you don't have deception, you don't have this, you don't have that. So our guys got to be able to win first and foremost, whether they're a hitter or a pitcher. Are we going to have great information on there? Heck yeah. We're going to have, different things for them, post game. We're going to have different things in our fall packets. We will have all of that. We'll be as detailed with our shifting, our defensive linemen as anybody in the country. I know that. But at the core value of you can't rely on that always. You got to know how to win. I always use the example when guys go play. It sounds silly, this correlation, but follow me here. You ever watch just 2 guys on a baseball team go play ping pong? Yeah. They worry about the angles of the paddle. Do they worry about the amount of spin? No, they just try to win.
Yeah.
And so when you worry more about winning and being competitive, whether I'm sprinting against you, whether I'm doing my PFP better than you, whether I'm a hitter and I'm hitting more balls backside in a drill, or getting my hit and run down every time. If I do that every time, the analytics will then line up, and then we can use those to help tinker that last 2 to 4 to 6%. But if you're trying to use that to find 100%, you're not going to. I don't care what anyone says. That doesn't make me anti-analytic. It makes me anti-non-competitor. And so we are going to ingrain that first, and then we will utilize those additional things to have our guys assess their game and improve their game.
How different is that, though, to have that opportunity now to be able to show guys stuff and be able to go to analytics, have the Rapsodo and all that? How nice would that have been to have had when you were playing, and how much better of a player do you think it could have made you?
I think it would have been very interesting to see, maybe some things from a usage standpoint on the pitching side. I think myself, I did two-way a little bit early on. I think it would have probably told me there's some things that I could do better, maybe from a strength perspective when I was young, knowing like, hey, you think you're hitting balls hard, but you're hitting at 96 miles an hour when real dudes hit the ball 104. I think that would have been something as maybe a bit of a motivator, perhaps. So I do think that anyone can benefit from it, but I think it just holds you accountable. It's like when you think you have intent and you're a guy that can throw the ball 90 miles an hour and you're throwing 83, like, dude, we're not getting anything out of this. Your intent's crappy. You're not really getting after it. In fact, you're not really competing. So we have now wasted a day. Now you have that ability to have Rapsodo and these things and show them like, dude, this is the standard for it. So I really think more than anything, it just holds guys accountable. So if that improves you, absolutely. It's just like the weight room. Everybody knows if I go to do a bench press and there's 245s on each side, that's 225. And that's kind of like your gold standard, your combine type stuff. If you can do that, you're strong. If you can't, you're weak. Like that's the standard. Well, I think the same thing can be said for some things that you can find via analytics.
Do you kind of feel like that the analytic, like what you were just kind of describing, has that turned into baseball's version of like film? Like, football coaches say all the time, hey, the film's not going to lie, the eye in the sky, that's what's going to, and do you think that's what, because baseball's harder because you're not getting the ball hit to you all the time and you're not having to sprint, left and right all the time. But is that kind of now the baseball version of film and showing, hey, you're not playing as hard as you think you're playing, or you're not doing this as well as you think you're doing?
Oh, I think absolutely. Well, I think what it does sometimes, it's very good for young guys, right? And not that spin rate's everything, but I'll give you an example. Well, coach, my breaking ball never got hit in high school. Okay, well, it's 72 and it's spinning at 1835. No offense, that would be the worst breaking ball in the big leagues because the average spin rate is 2420 and it has this average velocity. I don't know average velocity, but that's so skewed with curveballs, sliders, slurs, cutters, whatever. But let's say your ball is spinning at 1840. That's a crappy breaking ball. Now, if I tell you that as a coach, I'm the bad, I could be the bad guy or I'm a prick. I'm not. No. In fact, hey, here's where we're at. It's not good enough here, but listen, here's what we're going to do. Here's how we're going to work on it. Here's how we're going to fix it. Here's how we're going to address it. So we can then have that harder breaking ball, tighter breaking ball. Now the spin's at 2370 and I see hitters react in a certain way. They can tabulate their improvement curve sometimes through that. That's where I like it. I used Josiah Seiler, a kid at South Carolina, two-way guy we had. First time we put, the little spin rate gun on, he was throwing breaking balls, which I use the term lightly, and Josiah would laugh about it, but it was spinning 1607. It was like a changeup. I'm like, oh my God, sight, that's not good, But you look like a year later in the fall, he's throwing breaking balls at 81 miles an hour at 2360, and you're like, wow. And honestly, for me, it wasn't even like coaching, like, hey, good job. Like, no, it was his awareness and him understanding I got to throw it more intent. I got to grip the ball harder. I got to drive it through a certain part of the zone. So it can actually put the onus on the player and then they self-improve, but then we can validate those improvements.
Well, Coach, really appreciate you taking the time to sit down and chat with me today. Congratulations on this opportunity, being the head baseball coach over there at Troy. I'm really excited for you and for the program and the future of the program, and looking forward to seeing how things go there. And, it's a great opportunity like we've talked about. And, I'm a Troy grad, so really looking forward to seeing where you take this baseball program. And, you were part of Louisville's first group in Omaha, and hopefully you can be a part of the Troy Trojans' first group in Omaha.
I would certainly sign up to repeat history of Coach McDonald's first year, most certainly. But no, I couldn't be more excited. And I really appreciate you guys having me on here. And I think Troy's going to do some very special things down the road. And I'm just excited to be a part of it. So thanks so much for having me on. And as you hopefully say often, go Trojans.
Yes, sir. Go Trojans.